What is up, everyone? Brandon Ferst, aka First Report, representing the First Off the Bench podcast network. Everyone comes off the bench. We are first. Welcome into another edition of the the original call to post here on the network, breaking down everything that North American thoroughbred racing has to offer. And what a weekend we had! Friday, we were at the Breeders Cup at Del Mar. Saturday, we watched. And when I say we, I mean myself and my co-host, Raider Jim Martinez. You can find Mr. Martinez at Raider Jim 1090. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, I'm doing great. As we were just saying, it's a beautiful day in San Diego, a great Veterans Day, and thankfully it wasn't this warm and this sunny last Friday, because that would have been kind of brutal.
Yeah, it would have been a different outcome, at least maybe a different mood heading into that final race when we went into the Uber area to get our pickup. But I will say, top to bottom, everything on Friday went off without a hitch, minus one thing. But there's nothing really Del Mar as a track could have done. We'll get to the final race of Future Star Friday and the oddness. I don't know how to put it. The interesting result that was, but anyways, we'll get to that in a bit. But other than that, Del Mar, absolutely fantastic. Even like I said, down to the Uber to the pickup, they really did have it going on, and a fantastic event. But Raider Jim, before we get into the results, just want to ask you about what your thoughts were of Friday, obviously, when we were there, and your overall experience of, really the Breeders' Cup as a whole.
It was what a well-orchestrated event. Of course, you don't expect anything but five-star when it comes to the Del Mar racetrack. Craig Dato and team, and they did their part. But these Breeder Cup folks, when they come in, it's obvious they have this so dialed in. And between the two organizations, as you said, everything from the parking, the signage, just making it a very, very easy, fun day, very relaxed. There was nothing more they could have done, I don't think. It was just a phenomenal day. A lot of people enjoying themselves, and it was just great to see everybody and see these fine thoroughbreds up close. I mean, the all-star jockey lineup was just amazing, to stand out at the paddock area and watch the Ortiz brothers walk out with Mike Smith and Flavian Pratt and Umberto Rispoli and Florent Giraud, Tyler Gaffalone, all of them. Everybody was there. Joe Bravo. Wow. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yeah, it really was. I thought it was a great, what they brought up on the telecast. It is kind of the Olympics of horse racing. And really, I felt like the crowd was the same way. It's, Del Mar always gets, especially during the summer, they get their tourists, so they get the people from out of town. But that's more of a situation. They hit San Diego because it's beautiful weather and people told them to check out Del Mar. This was different. Obviously, the people were in town for the Breeders' Cup, and it really showed. It was a worldwide audience and a lot of really great horse players. I mean, the first thing we did when we got there was head to the paddock, and right away, I forget what the gentleman, or if he even introduced himself, but kind of brought up, hey, yeah, Jack Christopher scratched, and that immediately, oh, hey. But there were a lot of big time horse players there, a lot of money on the line. I remember, there was one where it might have been Echo Zulu or maybe even Corniche, who had $750,000 on it just to get to win in the win column. So a lot of money was on the display. I think I saw, I definitely know it was a record handle, something around 183 million, 138 million, something like that. A lot of money, but great for Del Mar, great showing. But let's dive into the recap of the Breeders' Cup. Of course, we will start kind of in sequential order, starting with that first race, or at least the race number 6 that started off Breeders' Cup weekend. It was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Turf. Definitely a bit of a long shot field here, at least in terms of the payouts. I know personally, Coffee Maker was one that was at least able to hit on my ticket, but Twilight Gleaming started the rally for Irad Ortiz, and Wesley Ward, who actually wins his 3rd straight juvenile turf. as a trainer. So congratulations to him. But this is the Irish horse. It pays 1240, 580, 460. Go Bears go. Got a lot of love, of course, from those Bears fans. Another Irish horse. 1060 to play, 720 to show, and then Coffee Maker, a nice 1120 to show. There we also had some other horses running. I myself personally was a little underwhelmed by what I saw out of One Timer and really Averly Jane. I didn't have money on Averly Jane, but I definitely expected Averly Jane to be at least in the mix, let alone in the money. Wasn't the case. A disappointing 5th place finish, but this is the cream of the crop. It's hard to kind of get down on a horse who finishes 5th that's best in that division as a 2-year-old. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on race number 6, the first race of Breeders' Cup weekend, the Juvenile Turf Sprint?
Yeah, like you, I was very disappointed. Had no money on Averly Jane, but was surprised because Averly Jane went off at under 2-1. So for the, to finish in 5th place was a real surprise. The other one that surprised me was Flavian Pratt on Time to Party. Went off at the highest odds, I believe, in the field, or close, maybe the 2nd or 3rd highest odds in the field, but was very surprised that he just couldn't get that horse going. Ended up finishing 2nd to the bottom on the pack. Now, the one thing you said was Twilight Gleaming. Irad Ortiz Jr. Let me tell you what, the Ortiz brothers came into San Diego and they were here. They ran on, I believe they actually had some mounts on opening day for the Bing Crosby session, which would have been Wednesday. They ran some on Thursday. And of course, then they were here for the Breeders' Cup. In that 1 week, when you go to Del Mar and look at the leaderboard, Irad Ortiz is the number 2 winning jockey at Del Mar right now, and his brother is the number 6 winning jockey. Irad had $2.8 million in winnings last week. His brother had $2.3 million, which is why they are considered the higher echelon of jockeys and some of the best in the nation. It was just a privilege to watch them run. And so calm, so relaxed. I mean, not that you ever see the jittery jockeys, but there was just something about watching Irad Ortiz. It was just, his demeanor never really changed till he was in the winner's circle, and then it was all smiles and throwing flowers to people. But it was a great race, great race.
I agree, especially for the Ortiz brothers, and obviously Irad is, I would say, more notable, but Jose is someone that we'll get to the run, I think, in 2 races, but the run he had on Pizza Bianca was. You can find it on YouTube or pretty much anywhere. There's the jockey cam. If you want to see how to ride a horse to the winner's circle from the back of the pack, there is your exhibit A. But we do move on to race number 7. It was the second Breeders' Cup race. The Juvenile fillies going 1 mile and 16 on the dirt for 2-year-olds, obviously. 1.7 was the purse here. This was as easy as it gets, probably maybe all weekend or definitely on Friday. I do remember this one. This was a race that both myself and Raider Jim, we watched from the infield, and Echo Zulu, Steve Asmussen and Joel Rosario teaming up there. Echo Zulu, without a doubt, the best 2-year-old filly in the country. 3rd straight grade 1 to end its season. The payout 360, 260, and 210. Juju's Map came in 2nd, 320, 240, and Tarabi 340 to finish that off. Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on a very dominant run from Echo Zulu?
Yeah, it wasn't a great value, but it was worth having money on, I'll tell you that. And wow, there was no disappointment. This horse is the deal. I was so impressed with this horse. And, I just talked about how impressive it was to watch the Ortiz brothers. Well, the guy who ended up winning the most money, and see, people can say, yeah, but that was because it was big purses that he won. Well, okay, but he won them and the other jockeys didn't. And that's Joel Rosario. And he won this race. This is the first $2 million race of the weekend. He rode it all the way into the winner's circle. And boy, he had himself a week, because he ended up with posting $4.7 million in winnings last week. So hats off to Joel Rosario, and I'm sure Steve Asmussen might have given him an extra Christmas bonus, coming up here in December. But a fantastic race. I mean, there's no real no real surprises in this one. If you want to say there was a surprise, you could say that I can't even read my own. The four horse was supposed to come in, what was it, left the gate at 340 to 1, ended up coming in fourth. The horse that came in third was at 960, almost $10, 980. So that would, you could say that was somewhat of an upset, but all the way around, yeah, Joel Rosario, Florent Giroux, and Javier Castellano were your winners right there. And again, there it is, that all-star lineup.
Yeah, this is a horse that more than likely next year we're going to be talking about, in the early parts of the year as it gets ready for what we hope and what we expect to be a Kentucky Oaks run. But I'll tell you this right now, it was brought up on the broadcast. I believe this horse actually ran better, or at least faster, than the juveniles, the Colts. So keep an eye on, Echo Zulu. I'm sure they'd love to put this horse in the Kentucky Oaks, but if they feel good enough, who knows? Maybe a Kentucky Derby entry here. We'll get to another horse that could possibly, won't possibly be running in it at the moment. But for Echo Zulu, obviously it is Veterans Day. Echo Zulu, the phonetic alphabet that the military uses stands for easy. Slang for that was pretty easy. And that's kind of what happened here. To build on your point, you kind of brought it up. I did expect more out of Hidden Connection. I didn't expect this horse to win, but I definitely expected this horse to, challenge Echo Zulu. This was never in doubt. Congratulations to Echo Zulu. Steve Asmussen, another fantastic year for North America's winningest trainer, someone that is revered in the community and continues to put out winners. And this is a horse that going into its 3-year-old season has a lot on the table. So moving on to the Juvenile Philly Turf. This was, of course, a big money race, not just in terms of, look, it's close to $1 million in the purse, but it's also, if you look at the tote board when it was all said and done, a fantastic run from Jose Ortiz, and then Christopher Clement. I believe this was his first Breeders' Cup win ever. I think they were talking about he is no longer considered now the greatest trainer never to win a Breeders' Cup. He gets his through Bobby Flay. Obviously, this was the one. It was really cool to kind of be close to the winner's circle on this one. But Pizza Bianca, 2180 to win, 1040 to place, 660 to show. Malavoth, a horse that we were both on last week, and when we were actually there on Friday, paid out very handsomely in a place show ticket, 19 and 12 on $2 tickets. And Hottie coming in for Chad Brown and Tyler Gaffleone, that pays $5 on the show ticket. We did see myself personally, I was a little underwhelmed. I expected Bubble Rock to at least be somewhere in the money, or at least contending. Was not the case. Finished third to last there. Same thing with Consumer Spending. Expected maybe a little more, but at the end of the day, I was very happy. I was pretty much on par with Malavoth. Pizza Bianca got away from me, no doubt about it, but I'll feel good about my play show ticket that pays $31 on a $2 bet. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the third Breeders' Cup race, the Juvenile Philly Turf?
Yeah, this was the first Breeders' Cup race that was kind of all over the board. I mean, there was a favorite, but the favorite went off at almost 5-1, which is kind of interesting. There was no clear-cut favorite where people were betting it down rapidly, where we had even money or under even money going off at the gate. And then the finish on this one, you gave the winning three. This was a $1 $878 trifecta if you happen to have that combination. So it was a great payout for some people somewhere along the way. Jose Ortiz, there was one of the Ortiz brothers again. The horse that disappointed me the most would have been the 9-horse Koala Princess with Joel Rosario on board. I expected more out of that horse, but just never got off. Had a bad start at the quarter post, was in 10th, got up to 9th and 8th, and then by the time they got into the straight, had dropped back again. Did finish in 7th, but you weren't going to take this field and close that quick on that last closing, those last closing yards. Great race though. hats off to Jose Ortiz, hats off to Bobby Flay. I mean, sometimes it's, what do they say? Better lucky than good.
Yeah, and as I said earlier, check out if you can the jockey cam. If you're able to watch it without getting the motion sickness, it's not exactly easy ride. But I'm sure the Ortiz brother definitely knows that. But it was a fantastic run from the back, obviously for a 2-year-old. That for Bobby Flay, it was good to see him. You always need to see these ambassadors of the out of the gate, and he gets that one. Big Breeders' Cup. I know he had a chance, I think, on Saturday, didn't really come to pass, but still a fantastic run from Pizza Bianca, the 2-year-old. We'll see where this horse goes. See if we see it next year. The Breeders' Cup, that will be at Keeneland. But race number 9 on the ticket, race number 4 overall, the Breeders' Cup, was the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. This is very interesting. Obviously, the Breeders' Cup Juvenile is one of the big prep races for the Kentucky Derby, essentially sets who the favorite will be for the Kentucky Derby. Last year's winner was Essential Quality. Essential Quality went into the Derby as the favorite, I believe, when it was all said and done. Interesting enough, we saw Jack Christopher, who was, I believe, the morning line favorite at 9-5. Yeah, thank you. That horse actually scratched. A big question mark then became, how low would Corniche go in terms of the tote board? Actually went off at pretty respectable. I mean, it paid $4.80. Corniche gets the win. Mike Smith and Bob Baffert team up $4.80, $4 and $3.40. Papa Cap, a horse that myself and Raider Jim were both on. San Diego Joe Bravo gets aboard there, finishes second to pay out $9 and $6.20 on a $2 bet. And Giant Game, who ran a giant race with Joe Talamo aboard, one of my father's favorite jockeys, he pays $7.60. A really, really interesting race. And the big, I guess, caveat of this, Corniche not really tested. And I think once Jack Christopher came out, I don't think a lot of people expected Corniche to be tested. We did see Pinehurst, I thought, was a horse that could possibly get in there. But a very interesting race here because the Kentucky Derby points are not going to the winner. Corniche is not eligible at this moment to race in the Kentucky Derby due to the fact that he is trained by Bob Baffert. So, does that make Papa Cap the favorite? Very interesting. But in terms of the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, Corniche gets the win, added security on Bob Baffert. You can question whether or not the horses are clean, but I tell you what, if something comes back now, the Breeders' Cup Equine security will have some questions to answer as well. There was a lot of scrutiny on Bob Baffert's horses. Corniche gets the job done in the Juvenile. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on really a race that, like you said, for most of the day, not a big surprise?
Another race where those in what you would call your favorites weren't there at the end. I mean, we had 320. Command Performance was at 320 out of the gate. That was Irad Ortiz's horse. Came in 4th though, did not finish in the money. Those horses that finished in the money, 15-1, or the favorite, of course, Corniche. But after that, it was 15-1, 22-1, and those are some good payouts there. I was surprised that Papa Cap went out at 15-1. The last time that Papa Cap ran, Joe Bravo brought him in the money and made me some money and did it again on Friday. So, kind of scratched my head, but it was good for us, good for me, good for you. So in that respect, I thought it was a great race. Barossa was the horse that broke out, ended up finishing 3rd from the last, but broke out and was the actual leader at the beginning. But that was short-lived. And then once Corniche got the stride by quarter post, that Corniche was in front and never relinquished, just was solid, consistent. And really, Papa Cap was the one at the quarter post, was in 5th place, moved up to 4th, and then got into 3rd at 3/4 post, and then was able to get into 2nd by a head when they got into the straight, and then ended up 1.5 lengths. It was a solid place performance by Joe Bravo and Papa Cap.
Yeah, it really was very interesting to see. For Corniche, though, unless a change of trainer happens in the next few months, The 3-year-old season will have to look away from at least Churchill. Preakness is still a possibility, as well as a Belmont as of now. But now
that brings us to race 10.
Yeah, and get your crazy hat on here. Look, what a crazy run we saw here. Interesting. Okay. Okay, I get it now. I'm sorry. So race number 10, the Juvenile Turf, obviously, unless you've been, a horse player and you've been living under the rock and you haven't heard the story of race number 10, the final race of Future Star Friday, it was the Juvenile Turf. And let's head through kind of where we got to this point. The beginning of the race, we're getting ready to load these horses up. The 2-horse is, let me see where the name is, Albar. Thank goodness, is okay. So is the jockey, but the horse rears up so badly it actually ends up on its back in the starting gate. It was, look, I'll be honest,
and then was stuck and then got stuck under the gate.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Raider Jim can attest to this. I had to turn away and just kind of, say a little silent prayer. It was difficult to watch, seeing up close. You're not used to seeing a horse on its back in that confined area. Once again, thank goodness, everyone is okay. While that was going on, the 1-horse and most likely multiple horses were, obviously a little riled up. They had probably never seen something like that either. While that's going on, obviously the 2-horse gets scratched, is being looked at by the veterinarians who are on site. To get the horses out, most of the time they're backed out. In this situation, the 1-horse was not able to be backed out. It had to be put through the front gate. When that was going on, the starter didn't communicate that to the vet, who was probably, dealing with a bar. So the 1-horse, Modern Games, gets let out of the front side of the starting gate. Now, this is important because it was not communicated to the vet. So the vet, out of the corner of their eye, looks, sees the 1-horse go through the gate, or at least in their mind, jump through the starting gate. Immediately, the vet says the 1-horse has scratched, because in the state of California, if this horse breaks through the starting gate, no matter what, that horse is scratched immediately. No questions asked. It's obviously a safety issue. It was not communicated to the vet that it was going to be let forward through there. Now, the horse was scratched. Communication over the next 3 or 4 minutes obviously cleared it up. The problem therein lies, once a horse is scratched and then re-entered, it can only race for purse money only. And I've been watching horse racing for quite a long time. I'd never heard that. I remember specifically saying, what else are they racing for? But it was meant that there could be no wagering on this horse. Now, what's interesting to look at here is the 1 and the 2-horse. I believe the 2-horse was the favorite.
Yes.
So when the 2-horse scratched, all that money goes to the 1-horse, who is the second favorite. Obviously, the 1-horse then scratched. That money moves to the third favorite, which was the 3-horse Dakota Gold, which we'll get to in a moment, did not factor in the decision. So frustration, apprehension, and wouldn't you know it, Modern Games goes out, gets the win, and wins for the stable, wins for everyone. Congratulations to the ownership group and the trainer and all the connections. But in terms of the betting public, there were a lot of people who put money on that horse, saw that horse come in, and then had to look at Dakota Gold, who I know didn't factor anywhere near. Okay, finished 4th. Fifth, because of the way the tote board has it. You don't even see Modern Games on the tote board. Technically, in the betting eyes of the public, Tis the Bomb pays 1760, 740, and 520. McKinnon, a Doug O'Neill horse, pays 660 and 540, and Grafton Street, technically finishing 4th, but pays out a show ticket at 940 for Tyler Gaffleone and Mark Cassie. Obviously, it's very difficult. You can't really get on anybody. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on? I would call it a surreal moment at the track. Indeed.
Well, it was unique and one I'm sure I'll never see again. I unfortunately was at Los Al when I saw horses have a bad accident, and I have been at Del Mar and seen jockeys get thrown. This started before the race. Two reared up before they ever were starting to load the horses into the gate, and the jockey had to dismount. He more than got thrown. He just, he pushed himself off and landed on his feet. But that horse was having trouble from the get-go, and I'm not sure why. I haven't heard why that was happening. That would be Albar. And then, we saw what happened. It was very frightening for me because to see the horse go down was one thing, but to all of a sudden see, usually a horse goes down and they're scrambling to get up. This horse stopped scrambling after a couple kicks and jerks and lurches and was just still. And I thought, oh my gosh, don't tell me that happened right here at the Breeders' Cup. And then, so however, I don't know that it was as much the horse did it on its own, or if they also had the track handlers that were there were able to calm that horse enough so that they could get the horse back up. And thankfully, the horse, as you said, noted, was okay. But what an interesting set of circumstances. Personally, here's how it went down. Before everything went to hell in a handbag, I was very happy sitting on my tickets that showed the number 1 horse. Across the board, it showed the number 2 horse for a place in a show. It showed a boxed exacta. Plus, I had put another show ticket along the way. And then this happens. And so, of course, and this is where, for everybody who's wondering, this is when the term truly applies. All bets are off. That is where this comes from. Situations such as this, all bets are off. So now I don't have a bet on the 1 horse or the 2 horse. I only have the 1 bet that I had on the side. So now what do I have to do? Now I have to scramble and get a second bet in. So my second bet was on 4 and 6 and boxed them on an exacta. And then plus I also had a show ticket on the 4 horse. So worked for me. I mean, I was fine with it when all was said and done. But I think the other part that was a bit, if you want to call it unnerving, when modern games crossed the finish line, there was a very brief lull. I mean, it was a split-second lull, which then turned into just this chorus of jeers and boos. And Brandon and myself had moved down to the front to be at the fence. We wanted to be on the rail to watch this one. And it got a little unnerving to hear all those tens of thousands of people behind you who were upset. It was like, oh, great. Well, if they charge at the stand, if they charge from the stands, we're in the front, we're done. And there was no throwing, there was no nothing. And I think there was too much security. But what a weird way to end the program.
Yeah, it was. Luckily, I mean, I was pretty much all in on Dakota Gold. Dubai Legend, and was another horse, so it didn't affect me too much, other than the fact that Dakota Gold I think went from 5-1 when they were loading to essentially even money when all that money was transferred to that horse. But once again, it didn't really matter with the 5th place finish. Yeah, it's difficult because, like I said, I don't know if there's anybody to blame in that situation. The first and foremost, the health of the horse, the 2 horse, and the vet has their eye on that horse. The starter is worried about making sure the 1 horse is okay. I don't think, the minute that it would probably take to verbalize, this is what I'm going to do, have the veterinarian acknowledge it, take mind off of what they're doing. Blah, blah, blah. It was a decision that was made. I think everything in the right frame of mind. It's just the way it went down by rule. As Matt Bernier said on the NBC telecast to start off Saturday's coverage, once again, the better gets the short end of the stick. The first and foremost, the health and safety of everyone, that's key. But then look, you're right. There were not going to be as many people that were as fortunate as Raider Jim was to find another exacta. There were a lot of people who had this horse or those horses on a pick 5 or a pick 4 that would have factored in a decision that moved all that money to Dakota Gold. So you have to feel the frustration. There was a lot of confusion at the track. Luckily, like Raider Jim said, it was all decided and it was all, relatively civil. Just some, loud noises, some shaking of the hands, and, everyone kind of goes their separate ways, ruining the day. But it's a story, I'll tell you that. Once again, luckily I didn't have too much skin in the game. And for my colleague over here, the skin he had in the game, he was able to find another way to get back. So moving on to the first race of Saturday's Breeders' Cup session. It was race number 4. It was the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mares Sprint for 3-year-olds and up, going 7 furlongs. This was a very, very interesting race in terms of the result, as arguably one of the biggest favorites of the whole day was going to be Gamine. And not only did Gamine lose, but she really never factored into this race. I will pat myself on the back on this one. CC and Edgeway, I didn't exact to box them, but I had place show tickets on both of these. I'll be honest, though, I expected Gamine to win this race. I just wasn't going to put less than even money on this horse for this kind of exact reason. So 2 place show tickets on CC and Edgeway, a nice way to get my day started. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on our first Saturday edition of the Breeders' Cup when we saw the Fillies and Mares Sprint?
Great break from the gate for Gamine and all the way through the half post. And then all of a sudden just ran out of gas. And it was very surprising because it wasn't, you could tell, or I could tell, there wasn't going to be that second push. There was not going to be anything that anybody could do. Gamine was just getting beat. Cece ran a fantastic race. The other horse, Bella Sophia, very disappointing. I thought Bella Sophia was going to be the one to possibly challenge. And again, hats off to the place finisher, Edgeway. There was Joel Rosario again. And 17% of that $1 million goes to the place horse. So he had himself a fine day. He did. The payouts weren't that big, but again, I think the real story here, most horse players would tell you, and fans of the game, Gamine, it was a real head scratcher.
Yeah, it's interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what this horse has kind of in store next year. A horse that I think kind of at the beginning of this year had high expectations, ended up here, obviously, I think 3 to 5, maybe even got down to 2 to 5 when it was all said and done. And really did struggle there. But another team or another horse, like you said, Bella Sophia, especially in a small field, only 5 runners, Gamine and Bella Sophia, the 2 horses I thought were probably best on paper, didn't really factor in too much. But moving on,
I'm surprised that there has not been anything, or there were no, media cells drama. And I am surprised there have not been any statements about, Gamine wasn't as strong as Gamine usually has been, not as dominating as that horse has been. Who trains Gamine anyway? Why isn't that horse performing like it did 5 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting, with all the scrutiny down on the Baffert stable, how come this horse did not perform as it had in the past? How some writer didn't get a hold of that and just really blow it up is beyond me, but it's out there.
Oh yeah. And I think, a lot of times these days, I think if that horse would have maybe been edged at the wire or something like that, but I think a lot of horse people these days just kind of maybe want to, I don't want to say sweep it under the rug, but maybe just leave the elephant to sit there and not deal with that.
Right.
But they're going to have to deal with it, like I said, here in a couple months when, arguably the best 2-year-old in Corniche will not be eligible to run in the Derby, but that's for another podcast. So moving on to the next race, the next Breeders' Cup race of that Saturday, it was the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint, 5 furlongs on the turf, obviously a purse of $920,000. This was a race that I think we both kind of correctly at least called out some of the horses we need to keep an eye on. I myself hit well on Golden Pal. I believe it was the favorite, maybe 7-2, something like that. But it does pay $7 to win, $4.60 to place $3.60 to show. Lieutenant Dan, $5.40 to place, $4 to show. And Charmaine's Mia, a very nice showing, paying $12.20 to show. Bit of a long shot there. Big time international flavor here in this race, but it didn't really come to fruition for horses like Emeranda Ada, A Case of You, and defending champ Glass Slippers, who both finish out of the money. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the turf sprint on the Saturday edition of the Breeders' Cup?
Yeah, Golden Pal ran a great race. What can you say? I believe, let me look. Yeah, wired this one, out of the gate, and nobody ever caught that horse. And this was one of the races that kind of came back to earth and brought everything, reset the normal factor on everything, because you had the favorite, the second favorite, now 28-1 on the third place on the show horse, but still it was a great race. Congratulations to Wesley Ward. And then on Charmaine's Mia, that's actually trained by Phil D'Amato, and good trainer, nice guy. So glad to see him get something out of the Breeders' Cup there. Fantastic race. What can you say? Lieutenant Dan, again, that West Coast favorite, didn't disappoint. Almost got in there, but not quite. I mean, Golden Pal was a monster. Really, truly was from the get-go. So congratulations to those horses, and nothing that was really too shocking or surprising.
And that's kind of what we saw in race number 6 there on that Saturday. It was the Breeders' Cup Dirt Mile. Life is Good, a heavy favorite, dominates pretty much. I think it was the wire performance for Life is Good. Irad Ortiz and Todd Pletcher team up with that fantastic mile horse, going paying $3.40, $2.60, and $2.20. Ginobili pays $4 and $3.40, and Restrained Vengeance pays $7.20. It was this race, I don't think, was ever really in doubt for Life is Good. Even the minute it started, this is a horse that's been winning races like this pretty much all of its career, and has really shown that championship formula. There are a lot of horses that go out and will underwhelm at times. This is not one of them. And also Ginobili, I really liked what I saw at Ginobili. Wasn't probably as much as I wanted a little higher odds on this horse. Didn't really happen. I will say Silver State, expected a little more from that one. Didn't really necessarily get the job done there, but Life is Good wins the Breeders' Cup Big Ass Fans Dirt Mile. What are your thoughts, Raider Jim, on that Dirt Mile?
Life is Good, a special horse, and Irad Ortiz did a fantastic job. He had that horse out by a length at the quarter post, and then by the half, just holding still, and he just held it consistent. Quarter post, half, 3/4 length. They get into the straight, and he drops it into fourth gear, and by the time they're in the straight, he's 4 lengths ahead. He finishes 5 3/4 lengths ahead of the field. And hats off to Drayden Van Dyke. Great race on Ginobili. He started out, they actually quarter post, they were at 5 lengths back, or they were in the 5 spot. Then he moved up to 4, he moved up to 2, but there was no way they were going to catch Life is Good. But great races from both of those jockeys, but Life is Good. And with with Irad Ortiz on the back, wow, that's a great combination right there. So that's one, if you have Equibase and you can follow your horses and get the alerts, or even through TVG, you can as well. You want to mark Life is Good, because when that horse is running, you got money to win. So just a thought, just a tip.
There you go. Yeah, fantastic end to its year there for Life is Good. Moving on to the 7th race on the card that day. It was going to be the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Turf, a mile and 3/8 on the turf for, of course, fillies and mares. 3-year-olds end up 1.8 million is the purse here. And we see some history as Japan gets their first ever Breeders' Cup win. It was Love's Only You coming in, getting the job done, winning $10.60, $6.20, and $4 on a $2 bet for all of those. Excuse me. My Sister Nat, Jose Ortiz, and Chad Brown getting the job done with high-priced Underdog here, 1760 to place, 880 to show. And the favorite, and a horse that I was really high on, really struggled here. Warlike Goddess pays an even $3. You obviously saw Adaria, who was a horse that was definitely expected to be a part here. Didn't happen. This is another race that was very, very international heavy. I think there were only 2 or 3 actually North American horses here. But the European contingent gets upended by the Japanese contingent. Congratulations to Japan. And I will say this, if there's one thing that is great news, is when Japan gets a hold of a winner, and I look at golf, and I don't remember the individual's name, but Japan, or golf in Japan, has caught on heavily over the last 5 to 10 years. And it's because some of these players have, hit the world stage and are incredible. Since that's happened, now some of the best golfers in the world are Japanese. I'll tell you what, as a baseball fan, we talk a lot on the change up about Shohei Ohtani. I get asked all the time, do you think we'll ever see another Shohei Ohtani? I don't believe we'll ever see a North American or an American Shohei Ohtani. For better or worse, in Japan, baseball is a lifestyle. They do it for 12 hours a day when they're able to. Once again, do I advocate it? Maybe not. You want to let the kids be kids, but if you do want to be on the level of Shohei Ohtani, yeah, you are going to have to maybe put in a lot of crazy days and sacrifice. So if this is any indication now, horse racing can really kind of take a step forward, because we'll get to another race a little later for Japan that gets them in the winner's circle at the Breeders' Cup. But for Love's Only You and My Sister Nat, fantastic stuff here. But Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the filly and mare turf?
Yeah, I didn't have anything boxed on this one, but I did have My Sister Nat. I had a show ticket on My Sister Nat, so I didn't have her to place. I'm not going to tell any fibs here on the air, but and I did have Love's Only You across the board. It was a great race for me. I was quite happy with it. Surprised by Warlike Goddess, but as they came around the far turn there, she just kind of like backed off. I mean, and I don't mean that to sound like they surrendered. She just didn't have what it took to keep up with it. And Love's Only You, a great race, went from 4th to 5th, stayed in 4th, and then again dropped into a different gear and ended up winning by a half a length. My Sister Nat finished, got the place by a head. But what a great race from all the horses. And there was Irad Ortiz again, or no, that was Jose Ortiz was riding that, My Sister Nat. Great race all the way around. And big field. What I found interesting when this one took off, you had 4-1 basically for the horse that won. The show horse was based, 5-2, I think, and then you had 3-1 coming in 4th. After that, you move all the way to 8-1, and that's the horse that came in 2nd to last, and then it just blows up. After that, it was 12-1, basically, 14, 10. And look at the horse that placed 30-1, basically. So it was just interesting betting pool when I was watching this one.
Very much so, and we saw that in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, which was race number 8, 6 furlongs for those 3-year-olds and up, 1.8 million as well. A big money winner here. It was Aloha West with Jose Ortiz aboard, Catalano the trainer. A win price of $24.60 on a $2 bet, $8.20 place, $6 for the show. Horse that I was high on and made a little bit of money off of was the 9-horse Dr. Scheibel. Glatt trained Flavian Pratt aboard, $5 place, $4.20 for the show. And then following C, John Velasquez, Todd Pletcher team up, pay $9.60 on the show ticket. The big story here is the heavy favorite, Jackie's Warrior, 2nd Breeders' Cup in a row, that this horse, just when you think you have it figured out, last year it was the Juvenile, struggled mightily. Then we go into this year, and they think, okay, look, this horse isn't a 2-turn horse. We have it figured out. Go 6 furlongs, not really a factor here. So definitely a lot of question marks for Jackie's Warrior, but huge congratulations to Aloha West. Pays out, like I said, a handsome $25 on a $2 bet. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Sprint?
Well, you got to believe that the stock on Jackie's Warrior has gone way down now, and that's too bad. I mean, that's an Asmussen horse, and he must be scratching his head as well. Dr. Scheibel ran a good race, but I was kind of surprised that with I thought it was going to be this great match race, Dr. Scheibel and Jackie's Warrior down the stretch, and everybody screaming and yelling, and that's just not what happened. Now, Dr. Scheibel had a chance to pull it off, but I mean, it was so close at the end. It was one of the great finishes on the Breeders' Cup weekend. That was Flavian Pratt on board. But again, you look at Jackie's Warrior, you look at Gamine, and you wonder what's going on. So that kind of changes the climate of the juvenile fields out there.
Yeah, it was interesting sprint. And like I said, I think it could be one of those things for Jackie's Warrior. Maybe it knows it's the biggest stage. It's the Breeders' Cup, and it just can't get over that hurdle. But we'll see if next year Jackie's Warrior is in the hunt. I would assume the sprint. I can't imagine they're going to open this horse up again to see if it can do turns again, but we shall see for Jackie's Warrior. I don't think that's the last we've heard of that horse, but we will see coming into next year. So moving on to the FanDuel Breeders' Cup Mile presented. It was on the turf going a mile, 1.8 million for 3-year-olds and up. Space Blues gets Charlie Appleby the win. 620, 460, and 340 is the payout there. Smooth Like Straight, a horse that I was very high on, pays $9 even, and the show 620. And Ivar, a horse that we were very high on as well, both of us, a very nice showing on that show ticket, 1140 for a high-priced horse there. Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Mile?
Oh, I was kind of screaming during this one because I really was a big fan of Flavian Pratt on Mo Forza, but Mo Forza kind of got mugged. I mean,
Yeah.
really got jostled around pretty good. Nothing, of course, that was illegal. It was, it is horse racing, and you've got 14 horses out there, but got jostled around so much that by the time it got to the quarter post, they were down at back in 11, and he just couldn't get anywhere. And so they just hung in the back. They never could make a move. He couldn't get outside. He couldn't get inside. They just kind of got screwed over in the whole the path, the pack of the race. But Smooth Like Straight, great performance. I mean, I had Smooth Like Straight on one of my tickets, and so I was fine with that. Space Blues, there was that Irish thing again. Great horse, great win. But again, there we are. 2-1, 10-1, 25-1. This was a very, there were some very, very interesting payouts and finishes in the Breeders' Cup races this week. Although, as you said, we both talked about Ivar, and kind of not a surprise.
And a great run. I don't know if he got in the winner's circle, but Joe Talamo had 2 good in the money runs with some high priced horses. Good for Joe. I'm sure he had a nice little weekend, maybe not on the level of, some of the top leaderboard, but I'm sure one that he could look back on fondly and say, I rode about as well as I could have with the horses that I had. And, we talked about the big time payouts. Well, guess what, folks? It all pales in comparison to really one of the more, kooky, not kooky, but just, I think we both texted each other, what just happened? And we're of course talking about the Longines Breeders' Cup Distaff. This was a race that I was very, very excited about. But if you would have shown me this, I would have laughed at you and asked you what parallel universes you were from. As we see a huge 49-1 shot come in. This was, of course, Latruska, Malathot, kind of situation to see how those go at each other. Clairiere was also there. She Dares the Devil. But really, to be honest, Latruska got out. But it was not a factor about the halfway point of this. A fantastic run late. I believe this was one of the closer. I thought this might have been a dead heat when it was all said and done, but the photo did just barely give Marsh Lorraine, another Japanese racehorse, the win. The payout here on a $2 win ticket, $101.80, 41 even to place, 1880 to show. Dunbar Road, not to be terribly outdone, 1160 on the place ticket, 680 to show. Malathot, I think, was second or third favorite, only pays 380. Look, we didn't talk about Marsh Lorraine. I think we may have talked about Dunbar Road for a split second, but this going into it was Malathot, Latruska, maybe Clairiere, maybe She Dares the Devil. But I mean, look, if you could sit here and tell me that Marsh Lorraine was your ticket, I'm gonna need to see receipts on that one, because I don't know how many people actually had that. But a fantastic run, and congratulations to, once again, the Japanese connections, who go from pretty much in 90 minutes 0 Breeders' Cup wins to 2. So congratulations to them. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the very, very interesting Breeders' Cup Longines distaff?
Well, immediately I get stuck in these, trivial details after the races. And so I had to look and see and torture myself. Your 50-cent trifecta ticket on this race would have paid you $2,005. That, my friends, is a return. So, I mean, if you're the player that likes to do it and do the exotic combinations, and you said, okay, I am going to box blank the field, that's going to cost you a couple $100 if you box the field, even at 50 cents a horse, or 50 cents a bet. Well, it still looks like a pretty good return on the investment to me. No, I had nowhere near that. I had looked at Dunbar Road and then backed off, because I thought, I just don't see, Latruska is going to go out there and just slaughter this field. And out of the gate, kind of looked like it. Private Mission had a great start out of the gate, all the way into the straight, and then boom, all of a sudden was not there anymore. So I'm not sure what happened. That's a head scratcher. And again, that's probably going to make some of the trainers and some of the handicappers now, the track handicappers, look around and go, what happened and what's going to happen the next time out.
Yeah, it was very, very interesting. I will say Fausto Gutierrez, who of course trains Latruska, the fantastic Mexican horse champ, they asked him, I mean, I want to say 5 or 10 minutes before the race. I don't know if it was live, or I don't know if it was just kind of tape delayed and they just put that up, but he did not sound confident. He essentially said it's been fun, but eventually this horse is going to lose. So let's just enjoy it. And, that wasn't anything. I didn't pull my bet out or anything like that. But for me, I kind of went, that's interesting. And like I said, this horse was never, I mean, even Larry Colmus brought it up when Latruska kind of fell off. He said Latruska will not be a factor in the finish here. And Marsh Lorraine, once again, you talked about that person. I think that's the only way, unless you're that person at the track that, because there are those people. I definitely talked to some people. I'm going to the track, and they said their strategy is every race just put $2 on the longest shot. You know what? That's not a terrible strategy. You're going to have to wait a little while before you could sit here and say you've got a winner. But this one right here, my goodness, folks, it's a winner for sure. Congratulations to the connections of Marsh Lorraine, and for Latruska. Back to the drawing board, and Malathot as well. Obviously only a 3-year-old, so still plenty to go for there. But Marsh Lorraine, you want to talk about spoiling the party? If there was going to be a payoff like this, kind of like we saw with Order of Australia last year, I'll tell you, I think the distaff would have been my last choice. I didn't think we were going to see an upset here. And if it was going to be an upset, it was going to be a fairly small upset with, even Dunbar Road. I could say, okay, that's an upset, but I mean, paying triple digits on a $2 bet in a race that has Latruska and Malathot, that's horse racing for you. And you can talk whatever you want about everyone talks about Back to the Future and what they would do if they got their hands on the old the sports almanac. I'm not making too many bets, but this is one of them right here. $50 win ticket sets you up pretty well. If you had it on Marsh Lorraine, or even a $50 trifecta, that'll get you going. But anyways, moving on to race number 11, really the Irish championship, or at least the international championship. It is the Breeders' Cup Turf, going 1.5 miles on the turf. Getting the win here is Yabir. Another one for Charles Appleby, Wayne Buick as well, the jockey from Great Britain. I believe that he said he might be trying to do a little more international racing next year. So we might see him at Del Mar in the summer. We'll see. But anyways, Charlie Appleby gets another win for Yabir. That horse pays 19 even, 980 to place, 720 to show. Broom runs very well. Another Irish horse, 10 even and 7 to show there. And Tiona, another Irish horse, 740 to show there. Once again, this was a horse that, I mean, I'm just looking over it now. Gufo, Astronaut, Channel Maker, and Acclimate out of the 13 or 14 horses that ran were the only North American horses. Heavy European presence here. And for Yabir, a horse that I know we both talked about last week, a very, very impressive win at pretty high numbers, paying 19 even. Raider Jim, what are your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup Turf?
Yeah, your beer didn't let me down. I didn't have it across the board or anything, but I had a place show on it. I was really disappointed with Termawa because, I mean, the favorite at 2-1 basically, and I really thought was going to perform, finish in the money, but just never did. I mean, never even got off really. Started at the back of the pack, never came forward, was never a factor. This horse was never a factor in the race, which was kind of surprising. This seemed to me a little more of a lopsided race as far as look at the odds of the finishers. 8.5, 8-1, 9-1, 9-1, and actually a little higher than that on the fractional side. But still, just very, very interesting. Kind of an odd race, quite honestly. And looking here, if you had that exact or that trifecta, there was another 50 cents that would have picked you up $580. So if you hit that one with the other one, you just got $2,500 in your pocket. And I'm not thinking too many people had those combinations unless you're playing a boatload of exotics if that's the case.
Yeah, it was a very, very interesting run there. And once again, the Breeders' Cup Turf is usually dominated by the European horses as they predominantly run on the turf there. But we move on to the big one, the main event, just shy of $6 million purse, going 1.25 miles on the dirt. It is, of course, the Longines Breeders' Cup Classic. It was kind of billed as the young kids going after the old man, or at least the elder statesman, if you will. And spoiler alert, the elder statesman took all of the 3-year-olds and pushed them aside and said, you know what, I run this yard. It was Knicks Go and Joel Rosario, Brad Cox getting the job done, 840, 620, and $4 even to show. Then the 3-year-olds came in. Medina Spirit, as of now, the Kentucky Derby champion from earlier. That's still questionable, but anyways, that pays $660 to place, $4 to show. And the maybe top 3-year-old in the country, Essential Quality for Brad Cox as well. First and third for Brad Cox. He's got to feel pretty darn good, but Essential Quality pays $2.80. I know we talked a little bit about it yesterday. Our frustrations, I guess, a bit with Hot Rod Charlie. Didn't run as well as we had expected, but I think for me, the story has to be Knicks Go. Jackie's Warrior has had its struggles in the Breeders' Cup as a whole, dating back to last year. Knicks Go was dominant last year in the mile, dominant this year in the Classic. It had a tough start to its year, no doubt about it. I think lost its first 2 races, has fought all the way back to get here, and is pretty much in pole position to be Horse of the Year for 2021. Fantastic, fantastic run from another Brad Cox horse that seems to be the Brad Cox show at the Breeders' Cup. But Raider Jim, what were your thoughts on the whole thing, the whole main event that was the Longines Classic?
Yeah, Knicks Go, the real deal, obviously, and is going to be the horse to beat going into 2022. Wow, has to be a front runner right here for the Derby and some of the other, or not the Derby, but just some of the bigger races. Watch for Knicks Go. I know, I believe went to the Saudi Cup last year.
Yeah,
will probably be back this year. Interesting to see if they do anything different and if Brad Cox can get a little more out of them when they get to Dubai and do that race. I will tell you, if you want to know what these things really mean to the folks listening, when you're talking a $6 million purse or any of these, million, 2 million, 6 million, keep in mind and do the math. It's pretty simple. 52% of that purse money goes to the winning horse, and then it drops off from 52 to 17. So Brad Cox, Joel Rosario, they banked just over $3 million on this race alone. And I believe Rosario had won one of the $2 million races. So life's good for these guys right now. And I'm just looking very forward to see what happens in 2022 with some of these horses.
Yeah, it's difficult to, look, Tripoli was a heavy, underdog here. I kind of liked it. I also had some love for Art Collector. But this is a level, obviously, what we had 7-8 runners here. There's maybe 3 or 4 other horses you would want to see here. But other than that, these are the best of the best. Knicks Go took them on and really never looked back. I think this was another wire performance for a horse that, this horse started its year off in the Saudi Cup. And I remember waking up, 9:30 in the morning on that Saturday to watch that, thinking, look, Knicks Go. This is a horse doing the opt-in on TVG, which I took advantage of with Hot Rod Charlie. Once again, blew up in my face, but I had Knicks Go in that the Saudi Cup and said, look, this horse has to finish in the top 3. Of course, finished 4th, much to my chagrin. And I guess kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Had to kind of ship out to Nebraska to kind of get its form. Since then, hasn't looked back. And for Knicks Go, finishing off a year which, once again, as I said, started off slowly but has finished in a culmination. I believe one of only 3 or 4 horses that have now won back-to-back Breeders' Cup races in different divisions. Obviously, if everything goes as planned for Knicks Go, hopefully we'll see this horse possibly return to defend its title. But those were the Breeders' Cup, a fantastic event overall. Personally, after I think it was the second race. Let me just roll through. It was the after Golden Pal's win in the what was that? The turf sprint. I was not terribly successful, full disclosure, but overall I broke about even, and it was all good because I had a lot of fun. When you bet about around $500 total over in those 14 races, and you're down $20, I think you can just call that a good day. Enjoy yourself. But Raider Jim, overall, what were your thoughts on the Breeders' Cup racing wise, and final thoughts overall? Really, for we'll be back before the end of the year, but kind of putting a cap on the whole racing season as a whole for 2021.
No disappointments. What can I say? There was just no disappointments, and I can't thank you enough for doing this original Call to Post, making me part of it, and that we were able to attend this after we put it out there in the universe for over 52 weeks. That was what a rush.
Yeah, and it's funny too. I think you even brought it up to your girl, but I was telling to my girl that we've technically never met face to face. We were in a room together 2.5 years ago, 3 years ago, whenever that was. But we might have been in the picture, but it was for the most part watching a presentation and then leaving. So to finally meet you and enjoy something that is very special to both of us, and it is a bucket list. That was I probably said it multiple times. That was not your ordinary Friday at Del Mar, folks. That was a very special time, and once again, blessed to have been able to spend it with you and really all of you out there. If you followed us on Twitter, I'll be honest, I wanted to put out a lot more content, but it was so difficult to keep up with everything. Get your bets in. First, I will kind of say there had some technical difficulties. I wasn't able to get anything in on the juvenile, and I was very frustrated about that, but it all probably went the way it should have gone anyway. So,
and don't forget, we still have 3 more weekends of racing at Del Mar. The Bing Crosby session is still taking place. They are doing they will be running, I understand, on Thanksgiving, or at least have a full Thanksgiving weekend card, which will be the last. Then there'll be a quick break, and then you should start seeing horses up at Santa Anita again before too long. So we're far, far, far from done with racing.
Yeah, I believe if it's anything like last year, I think it's the day after Christmas for Santa Anita. I don't know if that just last year that's how it wound up, but it will be around that time that Santa Anita's winter. And once that gets rolling, we're going to be rolling into the Breeders' Cup, or excuse me, the Kentucky Derby and Kentucky Oaks prep races, along with some of, look, the Saudi Cup's going to be going off, some other big time grade ones. It'll be a little bit of a lull here in the next few weeks as we kind of focus our attention early on college basketball, the return of In the Paint next week with college basketball returning. But I know Raider Jim will be out at the track on Sunday, I believe. I'm going to definitely make some time in the coming weeks and head out there before the Bing Crosby session ends. But with that, thank you all so much for listening. Really not just to today's, but also every single original Call to Post that we put out. Thank you all so much, as always, for listening to the original Call to Post presented by the First Off the Bench Podcast Network. Everyone comes off the bench, but we are first. It is time for you all to go wash your hands and stop hating everybody. We'll talk to you all very soon. Take care.
Bet smart and bet safe.